Activision and Ubisoft have spent years frustrating gamers with AI slop, broken launches, and questionable business decisions. But lately, something strange has been happening. Both companies might actually be making the right moves. So are they finally learning from their mistakes? In this video, we will be breaking down what they did wrong and see if they are finally turning things around. But before we can talk about where these companies went wrong, we first need to rewind the clock to October 1st, 1979. Before the billions of dollars, before Call of Duty, before Activision became one of the most powerful names in gaming. Activision wasn't founded by executives chasing profits or shareholders looking for the next big trend. It was founded by a group of passionate game developers who were frustrated with the way they were treated at Atari. At a time when game creators weren't even credited for their work, these developers took a massive risk and left to create something of their own. Their goal was simple: make great games and give developers the recognition they deserved. Over the next several decades, Activision would grow from a small startup into an industry giant. The company would publish some of the game's biggest franchises gaming has ever seen. From Tony Hawk's Pro Skater to Guitar Hero to Skylanders and eventually Call of Duty. But somewhere along the way, something changed. The company that was once built by developers began earning a reputation for aggressive monetization, rushed releases, layoffs, studio closures, and putting shareholders ahead of players. For many gamers, Activision became the exact thing its founders originally set out to fight against. And that's what makes the last few years so interesting. After the release of Call of Duty Ghosts in 2013, the franchise underwent one of the biggest identity shifts in its history. From 2014 to 2016, Activision and its studios pushed Call of Duty deep into the future. Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, and Infinite Warfare introduced exosuits, wall running, boost, jumping, futuristic weapons, and science fiction-inspired settings. While players enjoyed the change, a large portion of the community felt that Call of Duty had lost what made it so special in the first place. Instead of feeling like a grounded military shooter, it was beginning to resemble every other futuristic shooter in the market. The backlash reached its peak with Infinite Warfare in 2016, whose reveal trailer became one of the most disliked gaming videos on YouTube at the time. Players were desperate for a return to the franchise's roots. That return finally came in 2019 with the release of Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Infinity Ward had rebooted one of the most beloved sub-franchises in gaming history. Gone were the jetpacks and futuristic gadgets. In their place were grounded gunfights, modern weapons, realistic animations, and a darker, more mature campaign. For many fans, Modern Warfare felt like Call of Duty had finally found itself again. Then in 2020, Infinity Ward released what seemed like a simple free-to-play extension of Modern Warfare, Warzone. At first, Warzone was a massive success, and it was. It introduced millions of new players to Call of Duty, revitalized the franchise, and quickly became one of the most popular battle royale games in the world. But many longtime fans would argue that this was also the moment Call of Duty's priorities began to change. As Warzone exploded in popularity, Activision increasingly focused on live service content and monetization. Cosmetic bundles became more expensive and more frequent. Battle passes became a permanent part of the experience. Seasonal content was designed around keeping players engaged and spending more money rather than delivering complete experiences at launch. Microtransactions had existed in Call of Duty long before Warzone. Supply drops and loot boxes appeared in games like Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, and Infinite Warfare. However, Warzone transformed monetization into the centerpiece of the franchise. Instead of selling map packs, Activision could now continuously sell operator skins, weapon blueprints, and finishing moves, and premium cosmetics to millions of players. As the years went on, the franchise became increasingly more focused on collaborations and crossover events. Characters from action movies, comic books, television shows, and celebrities began appearing alongside traditional military operators. What was once a gritty military shooter now featured everyone from superheroes to pop culture icons running across the battlefield. More recently, Activision has faced criticism over the use of AI-generated assets. Players have accused the company of using AI-generated artwork for promotional materials, loading screens, and cosmetic content while continuing to charge premium prices for bundles. Combined with concerns about aggressive monetization, skill-based matchmaking controversies, rushed releases, and declining innovation, many fans began questioning whether Call of Duty was still being designed with the players in mind. The irony is that Activision's biggest success may have also created its biggest problem. Warzone made Call of Duty larger than ever, but in the eyes of many longtime fans, it also shifted the franchise's focus away from delivering great games and toward maximizing engagement, player retention and revenue. As a result, when Black Ops 7 was revealed, many players approached it with caution rather than excitement. Instead of asking how great the game would be, they were asking whether Activision had finally learned from its mistakes. Unfortunately for Activision, years of controversial decisions had already damaged the reputation of the franchise. Whether it was aggressive monetization, the focus on Warzone, endless crossover content, or concerns surrounding AI-generated assets, many players simply felt disconnected with the Call of Duty they once loved. In many ways, Black Ops 7 wasn't the cause of Call of Duty's problems, it was the result of them. The game's reception reflected years of growing frustration within the community and served as a reminder that even the biggest franchise in gaming history cannot rely on its name forever. Now, after years of backlash and bad reputation, is Activision finally letting its developers create what they want and finally listening to their players? We'll circle back to that after we introduce our next big offender, Ubisoft. Ubisoft is one of the most recognizable names in gaming. The company is responsible for some of the industry's biggest franchises, including Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege, Watch Dogs, and The Division. For decades, the publisher built a reputation for creating massive open worlds, memorable characters, and some of the most influential games this generation. But Ubisoft wasn't always the company many players know today. Founded in 1986, Ubisoft started as a small family business with a passion for video games. Through the 1990s and early 2000s, the company rapidly grew, creating beloved franchises such as Rayman, and later revolutionizing the open world genre with Assassin's Creed. During this period, Ubisoft was often viewed as one of gaming's most creative publishers, willing to take risks on new ideas and ambitious projects. However, as the gaming industry evolved, so did Ubisoft. Over time, the company became increasingly associated with enormous open worlds, filled with repetitive activities, bloated maps, aggressive monetization, and a formula that many players felt was reused across nearly every franchise. Games that once felt innovative began to feel predictable. New releases were often criticized for playing it safe, rather than pushing the industry forward. The result was a growing disconnect between Ubisoft and its audience. While the company continued producing massive titles, many players began asking whether Ubisoft had lost the creativity that once made it successful in the first place. And that's where our story begins. Because to understand Ubisoft's current struggles, we first need to understand how one of gaming's most respected publishers slowly became one of the most criticized. So where did things go wrong for Ubisoft? Unlike Activision, whose criticism often revolved around monetization and annual releases, Ubisoft's biggest problem has been repetition. Massive open worlds, towers to climb, collectibles to find, and dozens of map icons to clear. The formula was incredibly successful in games like Assassin's Creed 2 and Far Cry 3. The problem was, Ubisoft kept using it. At the same time, Ubisoft faced growing criticism for its monetization practices. Experience boosters, cosmetic stores, premium editions, and season passes became increasingly common, leading many players to question why single-player games were beginning to feel like live service products. As frustration grew, so did the perception that Ubisoft had only focused on following trends rather than creating them. The publisher that once helped define open-world gaming was now being accused of playing it safe and relying on the same formula year after year. And that's Ubisoft's biggest problem today. The issue isn't that Ubisoft makes bad games. Many of its titles are technically impressive actually, and often enjoyable. The issue is that players remember what Ubisoft used to be. They remember when the company was setting trends instead of following them. For many fans, it isn't that Ubisoft failed, it's that it stopped evolving. Now, to answer the main question, is Activision and Ubisoft finally changing and listening to their fans and giving them what they want? I think the simple answer is yes. And here's why I think that. For years, players criticized Ubisoft for abandoning the identity that made its games so special. Assassin's Creed had evolved into massive RPGs filled with hundreds of hours of content, but fans missed the simpler, more focused experiences of the earlier games. Rather than creating another open-sized open world, Ubisoft chose to remake one of the most beloved entries in the franchise, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, which happens to come out in just a few weeks. More importantly, Ubisoft simply didn't remaster the game. The company rebuilt it from the ground up, with modern visuals, improved combat, enhanced parkour, and a redesigned mission structure that preserves the core pirate adventure of the game we all know and love. Reports surrounding the remake state that Ubisoft's goal was to not just reinvent Black Flag, but to re-improve it while respecting the game that made it great in the first place. Activision appears to be taking a similar approach with Modern Warfare 4. After years of criticism surrounding excessive cosmetics, unrealistic crossovers, and an increasing focus on Warzone, Infinity Ward has been emphasizing a more grounded experience. Early information points toward a return to realistic combat, improved weapon handling, refined multiplayer systems, and a stronger focus on core gameplay fundamentals rather than flashy gimmicks. The game is also abandoning last generation consoles, allowing developers to focus entirely on current hardware to create a more polished experience. They clearly have confidence in the product they are creating. What's interesting though is that both companies seem to be looking backward in order to move forward. Ubisoft is betting on one of the most beloved Assassin's Creed games ever made, and Activision is doubling down on the Modern Warfare formula that helped define Call of Duty's most successful era. Rather than chasing every new trend, both publishers appear to be focusing on what players originally loved about their franchises. Whether these changes are enough to rebuild trust remains to be seen, but for the first time in years, it feels like Activision and Ubisoft may finally be listening to the people that made their franchises successful in the first place: the players. So in conclusion, are Ubisoft and Activision finally learning from their mistakes? Right now, it certainly looks like they are. With Ubisoft revisiting one of its most beloved games, and Activision seemingly returning to the grounded roots that made Call of Duty a household name, both companies appear to be listening to the feedback players have been giving for years. However, one successful game isn't enough to repair years of damaged trust. The real question isn't whether these companies can make a great game again, it's whether they can continue putting players first once the sales start rolling in. Only time will tell if these recent changes represent a genuine shift in direction or simply a temporary course correction. For the first time in a long time, there is a reason for players to be optimistic. From this point forward, it's up to Ubisoft and Activision to prove that they will apply these changes in the future. And I hope that they do, because so many of us love their games and we want to see them succeed. But we also want to play something worth our time. And I hope that going forward, they do what they're doing now, and they think about the players first and the greed last. Thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.